Hi, this is Chris of Wilson Life Sculpture, and this is the continuation of my painting video. My third video showing how I improve these miniature eagles, and the last video I also showed how I'm improving painting this saw-whet owl and a nuthatch I showed. So I'm still painting moss, and I'm improving these sculptures. So I demonstrated some wash techniques and different techniques. Sorry for the abrupt ending. I accidentally pushed stop on the video or the camera. So I showed all the different paints I use, the brushes I use, the mediums I use, how I paint, how I mix colors. And this is a continuation of that. You can go back and watch that other video to show how I explained for beginners how to get started. So I tend to be a little bit advanced because I've been painting for all my life, for 40 years, going to art school, going to grad school, and painting and wood carving professionally for over 30 years. So I am just painting a little bit more details on these birds, improving them, and I am going to tone some of these moss down with some Liquitex Raw Sienna. Okay, it's a paint that's a professional brand that I had since art school. This is, let's see, it has the date on it here. This is 1980, okay? That's how long since I've had it. So I bought it in 1980, and yeah, that goes back, wow. That goes back when I was just starting to learn this art form. I started when I was 10 years old. So paint can last a long time if you take care of it. That's why I don't let paint kind of accumulate around the rims of the paint. I don't squeeze it out. I will dip it with a palette knife in there and get it out. And that's just a little chip from experience. And also I took lessons as a teenager from a professional artist. I was very lucky to have my family's support and to be able to have these lessons. And I hope I can help you since I was a professor of art and been doing this so long. So if you find value in these videos, please like and comment, as well as subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate your support. So let's get busy painting and have fun. So here I'm gonna get a little closer so you can see there's the Liquitex Raw Sienna, and I just dipped my paint palette knife there. Make sure you have all you're not squeezing out the vehicle of the paint. That's the liquid polymer. There is a little bit there. So you can squeeze the side of the plastic very gently, because this is very old, and you can get that pigment to come up here. I got a little bit of the vehicle. It's the polymer emulsion that binds the pigment together. And I try not to get that too much in my paint because that can affect the sheen. So I am going to, let's see, get a little bit just with the paintbrush. There we go. Okay, I got a little bit more. Okay, I don't like doing that because, as I explained in my first video, you can ruin paintbrushes by getting the paint in the furloughs. However, I'm going to do more washes of color. By washes of color, I mean I am adding more water. And now to actually help that paintbrush, I make paintbrushes last 20 years too. This used to point up to a very fine brush, but now it's great for just applying paint in general. Okay, so wipe also the palette knife off. Again, I'm a very neat painter. Although I did have a couple accidents in my last video and had to stop and clean up. I'm not even painting over a newspaper or something, but I would if I were you. But I've been doing this so long, and I try to brace my hand, and that comes with coordination. Okay, so I'm looking at this owl here. Let's put this front and center. And the paint's still dry on there because it's still wet on there. It's drying a little bit, and so I am going to put washes of this raw sienna in there because I see a more warm yellow in the eyes and feet of the bird. This is an elf owl. That's the smallest Native American owl in North America. And so I am going to add yellow washes over that yellow I added yellow for highlights if you watch the first video. In yellow, this is a raw sienna, so I'm applying raw sienna over a cadmium yellow mixed with a little taxi yellow. You don't have to have all these different brands of paint, but yellow you do need because that's a primary color. Green you do not need because you could add blue to the yellow and you can get green by mixing blue with the green. With the yellow. Okay, so trying to concentrate and paint at the same time. It's not easy. I'm not used to talking and doing painting videos. Although I have a making and painting of a magnolia sculpture on my website, and it's available to purchase, showing all my tricks from welding metal habitat to painting and stuff I learned the hard way. Okay, but you can learn the easy way here and watch these videos. Again, I'm just toning the moss down. Let's see, you can see that okay. Yeah, it's blending in with the, push that back a little bit here. Always dip your brush constantly in water. So I've got clean water here and another water that is for dipping the brushes that already have paint on them, keeping them kind of wet. And I will clean them with soap and water a little bit here. So let's go to the eagle sculpture over here. And I haven't added the shadows yet, but I added the highlights to the moss. I am now just using a little bit of raw sienna to kind of age the moss a little bit. Just in some little patches, not the whole thing. I think I just trying to tone it down a little bit. You could also do it with raw umber. That's a very natural color. And I might do that in another coat. Acrylics dry pretty fast, and that's the advantage. They're very versatile, and if you add a little water, they don't shine up. Especially the expensive brand of paint. The Liquitex are professional paint. Some of these other paints you can use, they just don't have as much pigment in them. And I talked about that in the first video. They're cheap. You can get them, in little bottles. But again, they don't look as good as professional paint because they don't have as much pigment in them. If you get a lot of paint with pigment in it, you can control it more readily with water and get a real lush finish. And that's what I strive to get in my birds and even my moss and environment. I'm just getting some little more realism here by showing some different ages of the moss. Okay, let me show you the whole thing here. Okay, come around here, paint some of the aging here. And last we're going to do shadows, so stay tuned for that. So you want to have highlights and shadows in your work and try to make it really pop. Even though it's 3D and you could cast a light like I have coming here, I am just trying to emphasize the sunlight kind of beaming against the moss. I'm just visualizing it, not looking from pictures, but working from my mind's eye. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I've toned down some of the yellows and greens. And right now, the reason I'm adding a lot of the moss is because there was too much brown, which was the same color as the eagle. And I want some complementary colors to make it pop. And green and yellow, they go well against brown. It's very natural. Same with this owl. Okay, let's look at this last one, this eagle. Okay, again, it's very brown. I popped this with the base to really give it some vibrancy. Again, it's a little too much for my taste. You can make it bright if you want to. I like to make my work a little more natural. And this just makes it look, again, a little bit aged and more natural. I'm not going to tone everything down. I'll keep some of those greens. And the paint dries a little bit darker. It's actually dried a little bit since my last video. And the paint will dry in your palette too. Okay, so keep adding water to it. I have some green here. I'm gonna darken that a little bit here. I actually put too much out, but that's fine. I like to have palettes with covers, but I don't buy those fancy palettes you can buy in the stores. To me, it's a waste. I will just use, this is from an old TV dinner, okay? You can wrap it with saran wrap. I prefer the kinds with lids on them, with plastic lids, and I will reuse those again and again. But most TV dinners and stuff, they don't come with lids. Plastic lids, that is. But you can make your own. You can improvise a little bit. Okay, so I think that's toned down a little bit. Let me know in your comments what you think. Okay, do you think it's an improvement? Okay, I carved some texture here and showed also how I finished these aces in another video. Okay, I actually mixed dye and I mixed oil in the other video, and showed how I made these bases a little bit more contemporary and edgy, less formal. Okay, let me show you how I mix colors again. I did it in the last video. I'm going to come up with a dark shade. So we don't need the yellow. We're going to actually use a little bit of, let's see here, some different darker colors here. Black is okay to use. I don't like to use too much black. This is chroma. I explained the different paints I used in another video. And let's see what else we have. Yeah, I think chroma will work well. I mean, you can get things like this is dark green. You can get that. You could also add a little blue. And I did use this little Prussian blue here by Minim Acrylics. Prussian blue is a little bit intense, but I think it'll be okay for the shadows. Okay, so let's squeeze some paint out. I like to use a different palette because this is with my lights. And I already added water here, and I don't want to contaminate it. So I'm going to use this old yogurt container. You can already see I mixed greens in here. So I'm going to put some different greens in here. I'm going to actually add the green I have, because that's a lighter green. And then I'm going to add some darks. I'm going to add this blue. Let's see what this does. You got to mix it really good because it has a binder in there. And if you pour it out, if you squeeze it out and it's not mixed, then the binder, the polymer emulsion, it dries a little bit shiny and it doesn't look good. Okay, so I prefer to use a putty knife. I mean a palette knife. I guess you could use a putty knife. So I added some nice blues to the shadows here. It's too bright though. So one way to darken that is to add its complement. I could add a little orange, but that wouldn't go well with the color scheme because I'm working with yellows and greens. The next color is blue, but I can use a little bit of black and I can darken that a little bit. Also, I have this dark green. This is just a craft paint. I haven't even opened it yet, but let's try it. I bought it on sale for $1. Okay, it's actually an outdoor acrylic. I mean, most acrylics can be used for outdoors. Very versatile paint. So make sure it's mixed really good. And squeeze it out. Yeah, it's a very dark green. It'll work well for the shadows there. Let's try to mix that up with that kind of bluish green. Again, you don't need a lot of different tubes of paint. You can make everything with red, yellow, blue, white, and black. And you can also look at a color wheel to figure all this out about complementary colors, analogous colors, and what looks good by just looking at a harmonious color wheel. Okay, so let's get a little bit more black in there, make it even darker because I want it to pop. Actually, we'll use this dark green. We'll add black at the last. Just you can overpower your color too much with black. I would caution you against using too much black or any colors straight out of a tube that are bright yellow, bright red, bright blue. Not many things from nature are very, very bright and intense like that. So I will start off with using a pretty large brush and a little more of this blue tone. Here's my colors here. Okay, let's start with the owl here. Making some of this bluish tone under here. A little too blue for my taste here. Let's do a little bit of blues maybe in the shadow underneath the back side of the bird. So sometimes you just put it on and you say, oh, it doesn't look that good, so you just have to change the paint a little bit. Still a little bit too blue. But that should look good next to the feet though, because that's complementary colors. So I'm going to remove the bird. And I'm going to do that just using some plastic here so I don't get oil on the bird. And I'm going to add some of this blue underneath where the bird's feet were, because blue complements that orange. And this is going to really pop that feet. So this is a shadow area. It's a blue turquoise green. And whenever you have complementary colors, some of that moss fell off, which is fine. I demonstrated my trick with how I make it in another video. Now you want to repeat colors throughout the composition. Okay, I'm going to change a little bit, but I'm going to put some of these blues in the moss. I'm going to darken that up even more in the shadow there. Okay, enough blue. Does the eagle need blue? Let's see, the eagle over here, maybe just a tad bit here. Some areas. It would look good next to the feet because the feet are a little bit orangey. Okay, and again, I'm trying to... Okay, now I got too much green on here. Sometimes you can sand it off, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to just wash it. Use some straight water and kind of blend some of that out. I put too much of this color on here. But I wanted a bluish cast to show shadows here. And the more water you add and washes and build up colors, it's just the more natural it looks. So let's add a little more blue over here so it's not so brown, and try to... Using another brush, I just kind of work it out. Make sure you can see that okay. So I put a little blue on here in the shadows, and then I'm just going right over the wood, not over the moss now. And this wood's not even sealed, so it absorbs right into it. I usually seal the wood. Okay, what I'm going to do now is go with a smaller brush, because I really want to pop this. And this is the final trick. This is how you make your work have value contrast. You have a highlight, which I did with the yellow in the first video, and you put greens and blues if you'd like in there. But the last one is to add the darks. Okay, so I'm going to add black here. You can use a dark blue like ultramarine blue. This is carbon black. It's by Chroma, and it used to not be so bright. Right now, they have so many fillers in these paints. They're kind of cheaper in the quality of the paints, and I'm not very happy with it. It's polyurethane airbrush color. I do use the airbrush sometimes, and I can demonstrate that, or also give you private lessons on how to do that. It's hard to demonstrate things like that because I will... Okay, so I'm going to add black here. Some darks. Yeah, I'm just not happy with the contrast. So I'm going to, as you look at these pieces here, I'm going to get some black gesso. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. So what I'm basically explaining is a lot of these paints, the newer paints, the companies are getting a little cheap and they're adding a lot of filler and less pigment. And so what's going to happen is your paint is going to get shiny and bright and not look real. Okay, so use professional, good quality paints like Liquitex. This is actually gesso, so it's going to actually look very flat. And I'll use white and black gesso a lot of times so that my acrylics don't look that shiny and bright. So I'm going to squeeze some of this out. So I mixed it. You can see I mixed it really good there. Just squeeze a little bit of out. Again, I'm doing shadows. You don't need much. But I'm very disappointed in the chroma paint because it used to be a good quality, but they've added so many fillers now that I mean I couldn't even shade the color. So basically I am shading a color by adding black. You tint the color by adding white. Okay, and let's see how it looks shading. This is going to be underneath the bird's feet. I'll put the bird back on here in a minute here after it dries just a little bit. But I want it to really pop. So I have some blues in there, and now I'm going back with some kind of diluted black and green. And I know this black is not going to be too shiny. So I've got a very small brush here. This is a Lowell Cornell, ultra round. It used to point out really nice. It doesn't so much anymore because it's probably about a dozen years old. For very fine detail work on my birds, I will use a new brush. But for painting moss, I will use old brushes all the time. Okay, we'll see how that looks with the bird on here in a second. I'm just adding, more darks in there. Let's put this one aside. As I do that, I'm conscious of my palette, and I'm going to add water to it, to these color, to my palette so it doesn't dry out. I should have a top on this one, but I'm kind of in a hurry getting ready for a show. So the next one I'm going to work on is the eagle over here. Okay, let's move this a little bit more here. Move this out of the way. Okay, so we're going to pop this eagle, and you can actually see what I'm doing because the eagle is there. So here's the pigment here. I'm tipping it in here, and I got to figure out where I want shadows. Okay. Just have fun with it. Make it pop. Making it pop is adding value contrast. If you take a picture in black and white, or if your subject matter, you will see value contrast. Everything is made up of relative lightness and darkness, as well as hue and intensity of that color. Those are the properties, the inherent properties of color. I'm losing some of that moss, but that's okay. I will use that later if I want to glue some more moss back on. It's already painted. What an advantage. Okay, so I think it's looking more, it's popping now, and it's also not blending into the background so much because I had it blending it in quite a bit there with the brown branch. Okay, just painting a few shadows. That got a little bit too dark. So if it gets too dark, what you do is you go back over it with something lighter. You could let it dry, or you could just put it right on. I just put it right on over it because I don't have time. Let's add a little black here. And I usually paint like detail using glasses, and I will use my magnifying lens on detail work. However, this I am just having fun on. And let's see if you can see the whole thing here. Put it back a little bit more. So I'm just looking at value and having fun. I'm not concerned about super detail. I am painting the moss. If I get a little bit of the color on the wood, that's fine. In fact, I can paint it out using water. Okay, I can actually add some greenish cast to this base. Paint some more greens in there. you can see that. I think the more green it is, the better it is, and it's not going to fight with the eagle as much. And that is what I want. Paint some green up here. Okay, I got to do something in the back of the owl real quick. I mean the eagle real quick. Okay, and I see some areas I missed. So going back with the big brush, adding some blotches of green, and then I'll add a shadow right there. I missed some areas here. It's important to work on your area from all sides. It's a little hard doing these videos though, because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. But I appreciate your support, and subscribe to my channel, and viewing my website, wildlifesculpture.com. Again, I'm selling these works to raise money for conservation. It's a great cause through NatureWorks. I've got lots of upcoming events here, some very exciting news. I'm working on, I do this full time. I'm working on a public monument, which will be unveiled next month, very end of next month, which I'll talk more about later. I've got a huge installation in a client's home, which is going to take me a long time to make, but I'm looking forward to working on that and showing you that process. I'm known for my installation art. These are just miniatures, but I've done, I do a lot of life-size work as well as I do monumental work. I'm probably not shaking that camera there. Painting a little bit too hard here. Okay, so that's looking pretty good in the eagle. Again, this is part 2. If you want to show how I did the highlights, watch the first video. This video is showing the shadows and how I make it more realistic. How I muted it with some of the yellow, some of the raw sienna first, and how I put some of the blacks in there and making it shadowy. So I think it's popping. It's looking pretty good. Let's see how the owl looks. Actually, let's see how the eagle looks first, because that has to dry a little bit more before I put the bird on there. Okay, here's the eagle. And I think it looks pretty good. I muted the colors. It just needs to pop a little bit more. So let's try to do that here. It already pops against the walnut, but I want to show kind of mounds of moss. I want to have it look more puffy and three-dimensional. And the way I do that is by adding the darks. Black, a little bit of green, a little bit of blue. Here's a little bit of blue here. I think that what's working best is the Liquitex gesso. Unfortunately, my blacks are too light. Okay, so let's do this one. Just little mounds and clumps of. And if it's too harsh, I think it's a little bit harsh, I can go back and put a wash of green over it while it's still dry. Kind of blend it in. That's called wet and wet blending. I've demonstrated wash techniques, dry brushing, and now this is wet and wet blending when the colors are adjacent to each other and they're wet, and I'm stippling it up and down to blend them together. Okay, let's see, make sure I didn't miss anything here. Okay, I need to blend some of that black there by adding green over it. That just makes it softer and more realistic. Okay. Yeah, I think it's looking better. It's a little bit stylized in some areas, but I'm not looking at pictures. I'm just making this up in my head. Okay, so that's the golden eagle, how I improved it. I will still go back and see how it looks when it dries, because acrylics dry darker. Okay, let's look at the last but not least, the owl. I need to put the owl back on there. And I make my work come apart for a couple different reasons. One's to paint it. See, look how good that shadow looks behind the foot. Okay, I didn't make it that bright. I want the focus to be on the talons of the bird, not the moss. I could brighten it up a tad bit, maybe. Maybe just do a little bit of yellow highlight. Just kind of brighten it up. That's dry brushing technique because it's just barely dry. It's still a little bit wet. It needs to dry a little bit more. So I just highlight it up a little bit more. So you can go back and forth. You can highlight areas. You can shadow other areas. And these have highlights in them, but I'm going to shadow them. And again, I got the paint about the consistency of whole milk. For a wash technique, I get it thinner. Let's go to this side, the front of it. Make sure you're seeing this okay. Here you go. Here's the whole thing. There's my palette for reference. I like these old yogurt containers because they will last a long time if you put the tops and you add water to the paint. Okay, making that moss look a little more three-dimensional. Adding more shadows so it's not all so bright. And let's go on this side. Add some darks here. Just at the bottom, I envision the light source coming down here, kind of as it is. I've got a light shining down on my work. And so that actually helps show a cast shadow on my work. And I'm painting it in there. So that could be a good trick for you guys if you want to make your work more three-dimensional. Is just shine a light right on your work and look where the shadows appear. That's how I learned art school. We would set up still lives and shine a light from one angle, and that would emphasize the value, and that's how you would paint it or draw it. That's two-dimensional work showing the illusion of space. But I'm painting sculptures here, and I'm trying to make them look three-dimensional. So here are all three pieces. Let me know in your comments what you think about the improvements. I still see some areas that I missed. I'll have to put my glasses on so I can see the details. But I appreciate you following my page here, my YouTube channel, Instagram page, my website. It's wilsonwildlifesculpture.com. You can join my newsletter. And I hope you learned something. Thanks a lot, and I wish you well. Take care.